Let's go to our third question of the night, which comes from Sally Wainwright. Sally, good evening.
Good evening. The Scottish Government just announced it recognises 24 genders. Does the panel agree?
This is formal guidance issued to public bodies by the Chief Statistician. 24 genders to be recognised, from pangender to demi-gender. Sally, what do you think?
As a lesbian feminist, I've spent my entire life arguing against gender stereotyping. I think this kind of ideology actually solidifies it. We could be much more inclusive if we simply encouraged and allowed everybody to present and be how they wanted without having to attach labels to themselves. I'm very concerned, particularly today, we've been talking about responsible government spending. You know, how many hundreds of thousands of pounds has the Scottish Government wasted on this misogynist and deeply homophobic ideology? It seems to me that the person who wrote the list, and this shows, I think, some of the misspending of the money, doesn't even understand the ideology within its own terms.
Okay.
Because some of the genders, some of the words on that list don't fit any definition of gender.
Okay. All right, thank you. Rachel Hamilton, you've called for the term cisgender to be banned at Holyrood, just across the road from us tonight. Cis, of course, being where gender corresponds to sex assigned at birth. What do you think about the recognition of 24 different genders by the Scottish Government?
Well, I mean, to touch on your point there about why I've written to the presiding officer to ban the term cisgender, I mean, the definition of that is that you were assigned female at birth. I think, you know, we have two sexes, and we have, you know, I don't want to be called cisgender in the chamber itself. I just think it's disrespectful. And that's my opinion. I got a lot of signatures to that letter. So we'll see what the presiding officer says to that.
Are there 24 genders?
No, there's not 24 genders. I mean, I looked at the list of 24 genders. One of them is questioning. I don't think questioning is a gender. I think it's a complete and utter waste of taxpayers' money looking into this. We have so many more issues that concern the public right now. People who are, you know, on the breadline, people who are homeless, people, we got kids living in poverty in Scotland. We've got the highest drug deaths in Europe. There are so many things that we need to be concentrating on. I think we should actually have learnt our lesson from the kind of concentration that the SNP brought to the Parliament on the ideological issues around you know, gender reform. And I think it's really important that we recognise that, you know, the majority of people, their opinion of that legislation, about 72% of the public didn't agree with that legislation.
Okay, all right.
So I think they just need to learn the lesson.
Okay. 24 genders, Fiona Hislop. Explain.
There isn't, and I think the list is a descriptor that has been put together for identification purposes by statisticians, but I think it's been used in a way to try and describe a situation that doesn't influence policy. I think it's a descriptor for forms for those in a situation where they don't see themselves fitting into other descriptors, and I think that's what it is, as a descriptor. So I don't think there are 24 genders. Okay,
yeah, I think John Spinney said he recognises there are two genders. Mary Spurge, you are a statistician. Yep. Is it useful, if this was done for statistical reasons, is it useful when there's so much doubt and confusion over what categories actually mean?
So I saw this story when it came up recently, so was interested to look into the sort of the facts of the reporting and what it actually was. And my understanding is that this is a way to code an open text box. So, you know, somebody writes in how they feel that they wish to identify. And this was guidance to data processors to be able to put it into the categories that people categorising the census have used. So it was to, you know, if you want to do it and the way the census was done, then this is. So I don't think it's quite the way it was described, i.e. that this would be something that would be collected from everybody that was interacting with public services. But more broadly, for statistical and research purposes, you statisticians and researchers do want to categorise people because it can tell us something about outcomes, the way people are experiencing public services, perhaps difficulties or issues people, kind of encounter. And some of these debates can be sensitive, particularly when they're about how you identify. For example, I remember there was a lot of controversy in up to the 2011 census about the ethnicity question that was asked and the different terms that were used in that, because again, that's quite sensitive. So these things can be sensitive, but it can be helpful to categorise.
We're running out of time here. We've got a couple of minutes. Briefly, Paul O'Kane.
I think Mary makes an important point about statisticians and what is the purpose of this and why has it happened. And I haven't looked at the full list as described, and I know that Rachel's raising it tomorrow and there have been a variety of issues raised. I think what's important is making sure that the Scottish Government is working with whoever its statisticians are and making sure that, as Mary has kind of outlined, what is the purpose of this? What is it for? Why would it be used? And exactly, I think explaining and communicating that really clearly is important.
Willie Rennie.
I understand, the concerns that many women have who feel about the protection of their identity. I get that. I feel the vulnerability that many of my constituents experience. But I also feel the vulnerability that many people who have different beliefs in terms of their identity. And I want a country that protects both of those groups of people. And it's not an either or. It has got to be an opportunity to reach out and have compassion for the people who find difficulties without causing difficulties for other people. That's why I'm a liberal. And the debate has been at times difficult, and I found it really difficult to enter the debate, which is why I have to say, when you asked the question, my heart just sank, because I know every time we talk about these issues, it inflames tensions. But I just hope we can get to a position where we have compassion from all sides, which I think is possible, but is incredibly challenging.
Billy, we're out of time. Thank you very much indeed.